the news.
Hi, I'm Tessa with Brainrot News, with a few bits of news for you to choke on from March 28th. Well, congratulations, Utah. You've officially won the race to the bottom of the intelligence barrel. While the rest of the world is dealing with, actual crises like wars, climate disasters, and the slow-motion collapse of democracy, Utah has bravely stood up and said, no more healthy teeth. That's right. The state just became the first in the nation to outright ban fluoride in public drinking water, because apparently a perfectly safe, science-backed public health measure is just too much government overreach for these people. Governor Spencer Cox, in his infinite wisdom, signed the bill, citing concerns that fluoridation is government-mandated medication. Yes, the fluoride conspiracy, right up there with chemtrails and lizard people. Never mind that the actual medical community, dentists, pediatricians, and health organizations have been screaming for decades that fluoride prevents cavities, especially for low-income children who don't have access to decent dental care. But sure, let's listen to the Facebook warriors and a Kennedy who thinks water purification is a deep state plot. The ban overrides local governments that wanted fluoridation because, small government only applies when it's convenient. Salt Lake City, the largest area affected, now gets to watch its collective dental health slowly deteriorate in real time. And just wait, because other states are probably going to look at this and say, wow, Utah's onto something. So if you're in Utah, stock up on toothpaste and mouthwash because your government has decided your teeth aren't worth protecting. And if you're lucky, maybe they'll let you buy black market fluoride on some underground dentist cartel website. Trump's war on the legal system continues, and this time it's not just judges and prosecutors. Now he's going straight for the law firms. Two of the country's most prominent firms, Jenner & Block and Wilmer Hale, are suing the Trump administration after executive orders attempted to strip their attorneys of security clearances and ban them from federal buildings. Why? Because these firms had the audacity to be involved in investigations into Trump's activities. Like a wannabe mob boss with the power of the presidency, Trump is making it clear, if you go after him, he's coming after you. This is straight up authoritarian nonsense. The executive branch doesn't get to punish lawyers for doing their jobs. But in Trump's mind, the law isn't a neutral institution. It's just another thing to be bent to his will. If a law firm helps investigate him, suddenly they're not just opposing counsel, they're the enemy. And he's using executive power to try to starve them out, cutting off their access to classified cases, government contracts, and any work that requires clearance. This isn't new. Trump already pulled this trick on Perkins Coie, a firm involved in the Russia investigation, as well as Paul Weiss, Rift Kind, Wharton, and Garrison, except they managed to negotiate their way out of it by basically promising to do favors for the administration. Justice is when a president uses the federal government to force lawyers into submission. Trump gets away with this, what's next? Judges who rule against him getting their pensions revoked, district attorneys getting banned from practicing law? If this was happening in any other country, the U.S. State Department would be issuing warnings about the collapse of democratic institutions. But here, half the country is just pretending it's another day. Trump's war on history has officially gone federal. With his latest executive order, he's planning to turn the Smithsonian into a right-wing propaganda machine, stripping funding from any programs that dare tell the actual story of America. The National Museum of African American History and Culture? Too much truth. The Women's History Museum? Clearly a woke conspiracy. After all, women have never done anything, right? And the American Art Museum? Probably not enough paintings of bald eagles crying over the American flag. Who's in charge of overseeing this great cultural cleansing? None other than Vice President J.D. Vance, a guy who somehow managed to pivot from writing a book about Appalachian poverty to being the human equivalent of a wet handshake from Tucker Carlson. Make no mistake, this isn't about restoring balance or removing improper ideology. This is about gutting any historical narrative that doesn't glorify rich white men and their very legal and not all horrific actions. Trump and his minions don't want history that acknowledges slavery, systemic racism, women's suffrage, labor movements, or literally anything that suggests America has flaws. Instead, they're pushing to restore Confederate monuments because America First is taxpayer-funded statues of the losers who fought to destroy America. Don't worry, they're also making improvements to Independence Hall in time for the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, and by improvements, I assume they mean replacing any plaque about slavery with a giant golden sign that says America has never done anything wrong ever. Maybe they'll throw in an animatronic Trump in a powdered wig signing the Declaration of Independence while Jesus whispers the Constitution into his ear. At this point, we're just a few months away from them introducing the Patriot History Act, where all the students will be required to memorize a history book that is just 2 pages long. Page 1, America was founded and perfect. Page 2, anyone who disagrees is a communist. This is just the beginning. Trump gets 4 more years. You know he's not stopping at museums. Next up, libraries. Why let people read about history when you can just rewrite it? Maybe burn a few good books. And let's go ahead and rename the Washington Monument while we're at it. The Donald J. Trump Very Tall Tower of Freedom has a nice ring to it. This isn't about meddling with museums. This is about setting the stage for a future where only their version of America is allowed to exist. If you can control history, you can control the future. And if they get their way, the next generation won't know what they even lost. Putin, in his latest "I'm totally not an imperialist, but also I totally am" speech, is now claiming that the US had its eye on Greenland for centuries. The comments came during the International Arctic Forum, where Putin also vowed that Russia would do everything it could to defend its interests in the Arctic, which is dictator speak for "I want it, so it's mine now." Of course, Putin's Arctic obsession just so happens to align with Trump's long-standing lust for Greenland, because apparently Trump still thinks he's playing Monopoly with world maps. When he was in office the first time, he famously tried to buy Greenland from Denmark, who responded by laughing in his face. Now his administration, led by Vice President J.D. Vance, a man whose entire personality is based on pretending to be an Appalachia coal miner, has conveniently started sniffing around Greenland's Bidefik space base, which coincidentally is one of the most valuable and strategic locations in the Arctic. So what are the odds that Trump and Putin are actually competing over Greenland? Slim to none. These two romance partners are probably working out some sort of "you scratch my back, I scratch your war chest" deal. Trump gets to posture like he's some great deal maker, Putin gets more room to expand Russia's influence, and the people of Greenland get the joy of being the next geopolitical bargaining chip between two unhinged autocrats. And let's not forget why the Arctic matters so much. It's full of untapped resources: oil, gas, minerals, and with the ice caps melting at record speed, in no small part thanks to fossil fuel-loving idiots like Trump and Putin, it's basically opening up a whole new frontier for exploitation. When you mix Arctic resources with two leaders who think environmentalism is a communist plot, you get a perfect storm of corporate greed and geopolitical chaos. But sure, let's keep pretending this is just business as usual and not two deranged strongmen setting the stage for the next great land grab. Trump isn't just strangling education, he's taking it out back, tying it to a chair, and waterboarding it with a copy of The Art of the Deal. Because in his world, universities exist for 2 reasons: laundering right-wing ideology and producing enough STEM graduates to keep the defense contractors happy. Anything beyond that? Nope. That's just woke indoctrination, and it must be defunded immediately. Trump has now slashed federal research funding to major universities, pulling the plug on the financial life support that keeps scientific and academic progress moving forward. Columbia, Penn, and dozens of other institutions just had their research budgets gutted like a tax bill in Congress, all because they dared to exist outside of Trump's authoritarian worldview. This isn't about saving taxpayer money or fighting corruption, it's about Trump using federal cash as a choke chain to force universities into submission. Look at Johns Hopkins, a top-tier research institution, suddenly struggling to fund projects because the administration is cutting NIH grants while also launching a conveniently timed anti-Semitism investigation. Meanwhile, Columbia had $400 million withheld until it agreed to policy changes. Penn lost $175 million because some conservatives were mad about a transgender swimmer. If you're wondering what that has to do with science, the answer is absolutely nothing. But that's the point. Trump isn't funding education, he's extorting it. And this is just the start. Universities are already cutting graduate student admissions, which means fewer researchers, fewer medical breakthroughs, and fewer advancements in basically everything that makes the US competitive in science and technology. But hey, why invest in the future when you can spend that money on military parades and more rounds at the golf course? Make no mistake, this is a full-scale war on academia. Trump doesn't want smart, independent thinkers. He wants obedient little cogs for his billionaire donor class. The less funding universities get, the easier it is to replace actual education with right-wing propaganda mills. This is how you dismantle higher learning. Starve it, threaten it, and punish anyone who dares to push back. And if this keeps up, the only research getting funded in America will be whatever pseudoscience Mike Lindell and Robert Kennedy Jr. pull out of their collective ass. Trump's war on diversity, equity, and inclusion just hit a speed bump, courtesy of a federal judge who actually understands the Constitution. Judge Matthew Kennelly has temporarily blocked parts of Trump's anti-DEI executive orders, which were designed to purge anything remotely progressive from federal contracts and grants. Because in Trump's America, the only diversity that matters is the variety of white guys in his cabinet, ranging from the openly racist to the slightly more subtle racist. Under these executive orders, federal contractors would have had to certify that they weren't engaging in DEI efforts, because nothing says small government like forcing businesses to pledge allegiance to bigotry. If they didn't comply, they'd be slapped with False Claims Act penalties, essentially turning the Department of Labor into Trump's personal culture war enforcement squad. But thanks to this ruling, the Labor Department can't start freezing funds and punishing companies just yet. The lawsuit that triggered this injunction comes from Chicago Women in Trades, a nonprofit that helps women break into industries historically dominated by men. You know, the kind of thing that conservatives claim to love, helping people find work, except of course if it involves someone who isn't a straight white man. Then suddenly it becomes woke indoctrination. The judge ruled that Trump's orders were overly broad and vague, which is polite legalese for completely insane authoritarian nonsense. But let's be real, this is just the beginning. The goal of these orders was never just about stopping DEI. It's about using the federal government as blunt weapons to scare institutions into submission. If your company so much as whispers about inclusion, Trump wants you to be financially crucified. And with Republicans increasingly embracing outright white nationalism, this is just another step in the ongoing project of rolling back every civil rights gain from the last half century. The good news, this ruling at least delays some of the worst effects. The bad news, Trump will absolutely keep pushing this, and the second he gets a right-wing judge willing to rubber stamp it, we're looking at a federal purge of anything that doesn't align with his vision of America, an ultra-capitalist patriarchal playground where diversity exists only as a marketing gimmick and inclusion is a dirty word. A coalition of anti-abortion organizers has launched their Defund Planned Parenthood initiative, hoping to convince Congress and President Trump's administration to yank the federal dollars that keeps this life-saving organization running. Their justification? Despite the Hyde Amendment, which already restricts federal funding for most abortions, these groups claim that by funding Planned Parenthood's overall operations, Medicaid is indirectly funding abortions. Yes, really. Apparently, everything under the sun is connected in their eyes, and Planned Parenthood's contraceptive care, cancer screenings, and STI testings are just elaborate smoke screens for their secret abortion empire. While the anti-abortion mob seeks to choke the lifeblood of healthcare for millions of low-income Americans, they're not stopping there. Nope, they've got a whole new best friend in mind. Elon Musk's Doge, where Musk and his army of tech moguls fresh off making combustible electric cars are apparently out to streamline government operations like a one-man wrecking ball. With Musk's efficiency at the helm, these groups are hopeful that their dream of strangling Planned Parenthood can be achieved faster than you can say corporate tax break. Meanwhile, the poor folks who rely on Planned Parenthood for basic healthcare like birth control, cancer screenings, and STI tests are just collateral damage in this battle. For these individuals, losing Planned Parenthood services is like asking them to choose between a rock and a hard place. Without the clinic, there's no affordable care, and with the cuts, there's even less access to the things that they need to stay healthy. The cherry on top of this dumpster fire, the Supreme Court is set to hear a case about South Carolina's attempt to strip Medicaid funding from Planned Parenthood, which could set a precedent for other states to follow suit. If the court sides with the anti-abortion lobby, we're looking at a world where not only is essential healthcare threatened, but also where a handful of people in power decide who gets medical care based on their political or ideological whims. At the end of the day, fighting for women's healthcare shouldn't be a political battle. It should be a fundamental human right. But you know, that's just too boring for this political circus. Let's just watch as they aim to shred the safety net one Medicaid cut at a time. In the latest episode of Middle East Stability is a Myth, Israel has launched an airstrike on Beirut for the first time since the November 2024 ceasefire with Hezbollah, targeting a drone storage facility in the Dahiya district. This, according to Israel, was in response to rockets fired from Lebanon into northern Israel. Hezbollah, however, has gone full shaggy defense, accusing Israel of just looking for an excuse to keep the war machine running. Given that Netanyahu treats ceasefires like gym memberships, technically signed, never honored, it's hard not to see their point. I might even believe them. Bibi himself has made it clear that the strikes will keep rolling unless Lebanon somehow convinces Hezbollah to just stop existing, an approach that has worked exactly 0 times in history. Meanwhile, Lebanon's President Joseph Aoun is once again pleading for the international community to maybe do something before this escalates into a full-blown regional war. Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron has issued a sternly worded rebuke, which in diplomatic terms is practically whispering "please stop" into the wind, while also trying to set up a very serious meeting with Trump and Netanyahu, as if diplomacy has ever been Trump's strong suit. I can only imagine that conversation giving anyone with 3 or more brain cells a headache. And just to make sure things are extra bleak, humanitarian aid efforts in Gaza are still a logistical nightmare. Israel's government, ever the humanitarian powerhouse, has been slow walking this delivery of food and supplies, leading to mass starvation. The United Nations, for its part, has issued yet another deeply concerned statement, which, as always, will accomplish exactly nothing. At this point, their job is less about peacekeeping and more about documenting humanity's worst decisions in real time. This latest round of violence is just another chapter in the unending saga of revenge, counter-revenge, and revenge for the counter-revenge. The only people truly benefiting? Arms dealers, war profiteers, and anyone invested in the ever-expanding market of human misery. That's all for Brainrot News. Like and subscribe before they replace us with AI-generated propaganda.